Welcome to Still with Purpose. This is Amanda and Christy.
Our goal is to dig deep and discuss real, raw subjects in pursuit of greater self-awareness, positive transformation and healing, and to link arms and journey with you to find purpose and passion in life. Welcome back. Today, we're going to be talking about the question, do you make life harder than it should be? So, Amanda, can you read our quote, please?
Sure. A human can be given all the tools to acquire freedom and still choose to use a toothpick to dig. So this kind of goes into the old, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, right? I think we're so dead set that things have to look a certain way. It has to be this way. It's my way or the highway. If you have any kind of controller, leader personality, almost you can't even see a different way. And one of the experiential learnings, we had people go across the room and they had to use a different way to get across the room every single time, sometimes 100 people. And you actually can do it. You can do it 100 different ways. And the whole point of it was, if it's your true intention, you will figure out a way to get across the room in a different way. But also the final thing was, there's infinite ways to get across the room. There's infinite ways to get your dream done and to get anything done. But the resistance that it has to look your way, I think resistance just creates more resistance. And then you get to not do your goal and dreams again. So it's like, instead of just choosing easy and fun, why do we have to make everything so hard?
Yeah, I know too. We talk about the old program, being stuck in your ways and just being stubborn, saying, I've always done it this way, and just being shut off. Do you think there's pride in that and ego in that and saying my way or the highway kind of attitude?
Yeah, ego is the runner of everything that's closed off. It's the forefront. And if we actually stopped to think about it, it's really fear of failure. And a lot of times when you really think about it, is it fear of failure or is it fear of success? Because I've seen a lot of people admit that they're actually more afraid of success. And so doing it their own way, the old school route, the old program route, keeps them as the same person, because you actually really do have to grow into your dream. God is all about character building. If he gives us dreams that are just out of this world, out of our skill set, we need people to do them. I don't think he'll ever give a dream that's a solo. I don't know. I can't say that for sure, but I highly believe he's made us to create community and work with each other and bring all of our skills together.
Yeah, I think we're stronger together.
Yeah. And why do I disregard people's input?
Two, you mentioned either the fear of success or the fear of failure. I think the fear of failure goes back to that control. I know in my line of work, and I'm speaking for myself, I feel like if I'm not in control, then there's a higher chance of things falling apart. And if I'm responsible for something, I'm not going to be on the hook for that failure. So doggone it, I'm going to make sure that it's going my way and probably rely on a tried and true method so that, in my mind, there's less of a risk of that failure. But that's closed off. And that's ego and pride to say my way is better just because that's what I know.
Yeah, I mean, it feels dangerous to let someone take the lead when you haven't seen any facts that they can actually accomplish it. Or if you've seen facts that are not pleasing or you don't respect their leadership. But then a good leader is someone who's duplicating themselves and delegating. That's a good leader because you're creating more time for yourself. But also, it's kind of like when my teen says, well, I'll drive. I don't actually want him to drive. I get that 3 more hours driving up to the mountains to snowboard is totally exhausting for me. But it seems way more stressful to have him get behind the wheel in stop and go traffic in a snowstorm. Okay, well, then I can't complain. So if you're going to choose to not allow any new ideas in, then you have no right to complain.
True.
And this goes into more than just dreams and goals. It goes into relationships. Every relationship has to be hard. I mean, no, it doesn't. It could be fun and easy if you have great communication with each other. But this goes into some of our past conversations too. It's like if someone else is not invested and enrolled in that end goal, then you will have resistance the whole time and it will not be fun and easy. So one of the things I've done as a parent, a solo parent, is I I learned really early on that you have to get buy-in from your kids. So instead of them being annoyed and hurt that I was working so much in a season of my life, I enrolled them in, hey, if you support me on these phone calls and supporting a lot of people, then we'll go to Disney World at the end of the year. And it was like a good 12 months out. I was getting buy-in for something huge for them and me. That meant I would be creating the money to do that trip. And that also meant I better fulfill what I said I was going to do, right? If we got to the end of the year and there was no trip, that wouldn't have been great. But I had such great buy-in. I never had resistance. And this was when the kids were young and, could run around and be loud and all that. It was such a good tool that I implemented because I was extremely productive and successful that season because I wasn't angry and they were excited about what they were building too. They'd actually cheer me on.
And that goes back to everything doesn't have to be hard or a conflict or struggle. I think that God doesn't want everything to be hard. We feel like in our mind that complicated makes it mean more or more important once something's accomplished, but that's not true. A lot of times when we say things fell into place, it must have been a God thing. Well, that's because God doesn't want it to always be a struggle for us. And sometimes I do think God wants us to go through struggles and we learn from that. And that's what makes us stronger and grow spiritually, sure. But that's not always the case. And so we don't always have to look to make it more complicated than it is.
Yeah. If you aren't sabotaging your own dream and you aren't surrounded by people that are talking to your inner critic, those are the two big ones. If you're not clean and clear and grounded on what you're doing, you'll be taken out by your own sabotage, the resistance you're attracting, and the people you're hanging around. So, you've already failed because you set yourself up to be surrounded, especially the friends. Do not tell a bunch of people what you're doing. I honestly highly agree with the theory of do this silently and then present it later. And it's exactly what we're doing in this podcast.
Yeah,
none of my friends, I have maybe 2 or 3 people that even know I'm doing it, much less would remember that I'm doing it because it told them 8 months ago. And hasn't it been so freeing to just drop down into what we feel called to do? So when I go and talk to my friends and they know about what I'm doing, then there's constant questions. They're innocent questions like, how's it going? If you're not doing anything towards that goal, that's the last thing you want to talk about. It's accountability that you didn't ask for. And it's been so freeing to do this project because we know it's been a lifelong finalization of bringing all of our work together and actually having something to say. We've done a lot of work on ourselves to get to the point where we can be like, oh yeah, I could encourage some people in a podcast form. That sounds awesome. Now, was I there 10 years ago? No, but I also hung out probably with people that would be like, yeah.
Well, and that's what's beautiful about it too, is that we can work on this and it feels easy because we're not bringing in the complications from other people, the complexity of this opinion and that opinion. And well, he feels we should do this and she thinks that this would be better. It's just you and me, and we're working towards what we feel it needs to be and what we feel God is calling us to do. And yes, it has been so freeing. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. And if we had ego involved, we might go ask all the people and be like, well, I'm so afraid of failure. Let's just not do it. We're not cut out for it. Then we can go into relationships. Keep your relationship private. I really don't need every woman's opinion on the person I'm married to. And I definitely don't need to drum up my negativity toward my husband. And I can guarantee if you're talking to the mother-in-law, they remember everything you say about their dear child. Highly don't suggest that. Yeah. I suggest you keeping your relationships to yourself too. That's a dream for me too, is to have a 10+ relationship. And so how am I going to accomplish that? Not by throwing pearls before swine and getting all my friends' opinions on this dude I'm with. Unhelpful. Do you agree?
Yeah, I do. And I also think there's a lot of ego involved when you feel the need to run it by people, because secretly you're probably looking for accolades. Whatever you're looking for, it's not because of the real objective of why you should be doing something. Like you said, if you're looking for a great relationship, you don't need the accolades or the props from other people about your partner. And if you're looking to, like in our case, publish a podcast that's going to be hopefully helpful to many other people, what good good does it do to share it until it's ready to serve that ultimate purpose?
Yeah, the groundedness that we got the thing done and we got past our own personal hangups. We didn't need to bring everyone through our personal hangups. We need to present something that we're super proud of on our own. We don't need the praise in order to do what God's called us to do. And to stand firm in what we both feel, just because it has been fun and easy, you guys. Like, this is a huge project and undertaking. And Christy and I are both get stuff done people. And we have just kind of leaned back into this. And it's been really, really enjoyable. In fact, I'm sure that's possibly one reason God wanted us to do it, was to see that everything doesn't have to be grueling and miserable. The other thing about dreams and goals is it's for you specifically. It's your calling. And there's not too many people that have the same calling as you, if any. And so asking for accolades or praise and encouragement around it might be helpful for 10 minutes, but that doesn't help me do this for 10 months.
And you're really good about, I guess, let me say it a different way. Coming from my background in the client service world that I'm in, I always check, like just today it was, or yesterday, whenever it was, Amanda, let me know if I added too much. I want that reassurance, or I feel like I have to have it, but I think that's because of my background. You're really great about being firm in what you put out there and knowing that it's coming from God. And so I've loved taking a cue from you and saying, you know what? Don't always need that. And just like we're saying, you don't have to go to other people to get that reassurance. It's having that confidence in what God's calling you to do and remembering that's all you need.
Yeah. Interesting you brought that up, because we go back and forth with ideas when we're figuring out what we want to talk about for each podcast. And Christy said something like, let me know your feedback. And I was like, here's my feedback. I can't wait till you're so grounded in who you are. You can care less about my feedback. And I mean, it sounds harsh when I say it back out loud like that. But when you've invested in a human in trust, in fortitude, and respect, like that's said in complete love. Like, who the hell cares what I think?
And you have no idea how freeing that is. Coming from somebody who their entire career, it's always been, let me know your feedback. And by golly, you get feedback on anything and everything, and you got to make changes. And like, that's just the business that I'm in. So having a situation and a project that I can work on where you tell me I don't need to give you feedback. What you have is what you want and what God wants you to say.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, wow, what world is this? And loving it. Yeah.
I know. And the thing is I think God told me to say that to you, because I'm not a keyboard troll, but man, he does definitely write through my typing. And in fact, when I send you the topic we're going to talk about, I read back on it a day later and I'm like, I have no clue. None of that sounds familiar. And that's the same with my book too, is like, whoa, this still kicks my butt. This is so on point. Or I haven't grown in this area still. How great.
Yeah, I think that's when we know that we're in the vein of what God's calling us to do, when it's fun, when it doesn't feel stressful, and when, that old saying, time flies when you're having fun, but it's almost like we forget what we're doing because it feels so natural and we're into it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a great feeling to have when you're really working on a project or pursuing something that you're called to do.
Yeah, I think also what makes a good friend is they hear what your programs were as a kid. And if I know that you've struggled with people pleasing and perfection, so unless I'm desiring to manipulate you, that's great to know too. If I'm a manipulative person, then now I have a way to manipulate you to get you to do what I want. It goes both ways.
Yeah, you could use it for good or evil.
Oh, well, if this is an ego project, then you will do and say exactly, no, you're totally off. Let's have resistance the whole entire time. And let me just resist all your ideas so that you can be dumbed down, basically. We've all been in that kind of leadership.
Yeah, going back to not accepting new ideas because your ego is in the way.
Yeah, and I've never done a podcast, so you haven't either.
No.
So I don't know. I feel like, geez, if this project can be done the most humble way possible, when our ego is rearing its head always naturally, if we can get away with this project being clean and clear, like I'm all in. I want to see that that's possible.
Agreed.
And we aren't like super close friends, you guys. We met on a plane 6 years ago.
Has it been, it was 7 now, 2018. Yeah.
When you say that number, that means that's how long I've been divorced and single.
Right.
So then I go, oh, God. But yeah, it's really exciting. And just to spin a little bit down this road is when you hold on to things loosely with God, you know the dream's there. Just keep moving and he will fulfill exactly what he wants through you. The resistance is what stops it. And we haven't been attached to how this needs to look since the beginning. If you said something on the plane right after going through a brutal divorce and a ton of loss, I would have been like, sister. And so God's the patient one. I mean, 7 years later, hey, you want to do a podcast?
I think God knew all along because God knows everything that's going to happen and was waiting for us to have the growth and the experiences to catch up to that idea and then to put it in our heads that, yeah, this is a great project to do. But it wouldn't have made sense 7 years ago.
No, just on the aspect of you were dealing with alcohol and I was divorcing an alcoholic.
True.
So that might have been a trigger of, I don't know that I can trust you because I was just conned by the best of the best. That's me labeling a whole group in my pain, labeling a whole group. That would have been my loss if I would have knee-jerk response like that. And again, going back to, it has to look my way. And if it has to look my way, then that means no one that looks like my past pain can be in my life. That's the ego side of me.
Yeah. And I was still in a situation of it has to look my way, still looking for a corporate job and the same type of grueling schedule that keeps me away from family. So different stage of life. Whereas now it's, God, what do you want me to do? I'm open, I'm ready and willing and waiting. And that's when I think we're able to move forward and really do what God is calling us to do when we're in that state of just use me.
Yeah.
And that's where I think we got to before this podcast. When I ran the idea by you, we had kept in contact for 6 years and we knew what each other were all about just through that contact. And the idea made sense, but we didn't have it all laid out or planned out. We were just open.
Yeah, we sat on it for a little bit and we've tried several, ways to record and, you just kind of fumble through it. But if your ego's involved in resistance, unenjoyable, just so unenjoyable. And I think once you do enough projects like that are a complete energy vampire to your life, especially as a creative, if I have someone just killing off the creative juices, I am out. I'm going to go be a part of something that excites me, not that drains me, where I can be positive, a positive influence rather than you can feel my resistance dripping off of me,
Yeah.
One of the books that was instrumental in us having the ranch dream years ago was a book called True Faced. And it's all about dreams. Like you were born with these. Not only does he know the number of hairs on your head, he's set in you a dream and skill sets. And I've even read before, if you don't get it done, no one's going to do it. But that book expanded my mind so much on dreaming and why I am on this earth. It really talks about, I think this is where I got this from, but if you don't have dreams that scare the hell out of you, they're not big enough. It's going to take other people's money. It's going to take other people. And it's going to be the biggest character ride you've ever been on. And how many people are willing to do that? I think we know there aren't many.
I go back to what I said before. I do think we're stronger together. And I have certain skills that you don't have, and you have certain skills that I don't have. And so together we can accomplish much more than we can on our own.
Yeah. And it's more fun.
Yeah. So we haven't talked about our backgrounds in a little while, which, we say people may or may not care about, but we did decide at the beginning of our podcast that we were going to feature local landscapes to myself in Arkansas, where I live, and to your area in Colorado, where you live. But this one that I'm showing is a piece of property that it's been a dream to really turn it into something that I can share. But I have so many ideas and it seems so big and daunting, but it's scary in a good way, scary in a fun way. And I still think God is pushing me every day to get closer and closer to the vision that I have for it.
And that's the same with this podcast or even my book. It's like, it's not about the book, it's about what it leads into. I mean, I have facilitated women's retreats before, and I know it's on my docket again. It's just, I took a big hiatus from I took a big left turn, because I went through massive loss. And there was a point after leaving the ranch, I didn't want to dream again. I felt like I had accomplished quite a bit for a lifetime. And I was like, I got nothing. That's a piece we haven't touched on at all. But with our personalities, we're driven people that are going to get stuff done. But a lot of times we got other people's dreams done. If you get to the end of your dream and you have no family, no friends, because you controlled and egoed the whole damn thing, it's going to not be worth it. In the end, don't you want to be along the ride with people that love and care for you and they're excited for you in the end when you're running across the finish line and the ribbon, is breaking? If you have no friends cheering you on, your spouse can't stand you, your kids have disowned you. It's kind of like, yeah, wow, I missed the whole reason for the dream, because the dream, honestly, it has to include helping other people. It cannot be, I have this great car and this house. And that's just so mediocre to what gifts you have to give back to the world.
I don't think God calls us to have self-centered dreams and goals. It's got to be of service to other people, of service to God.
Yeah. So your piece of property, like you're talking to someone who was running a 230-acre property with a conference center and 50 bedrooms and 10 cabins. Like, you put yourself probably subconsciously in my space because I have the faith to believe you could create anything you can imagine on that piece of land. So that's what I mean by keep your dreams quiet, but also if God leads you to someone that starts talking about how they could help in an area, awesome. That's a person to grab onto their faith so you can keep going, get excited and keep going.
Yeah. And I don't think God mistakenly or haphazardly puts people into our lives. I think we meet everyone we meet for a reason. And going back to, do you make life harder than it should be? And are you open to new ideas? If you're shut off to new ideas and to working with new people, you're probably shutting off areas of opportunity that God is bringing into your life.
Yeah, because your judgment and ego will look at that person in front of you and be like, they don't have anything to offer me. It's a 20-year-old, and they could have been the son of someone that has a lot of information for you. So be cautious of who you share it with, but also be really open to God bringing in the people.
And the ideas. Going back to, I've always done it this way. I don't need to change. I don't need to adapt. You can be open to new people and you can be quote unquote nice. But if you're not really listening or really willing to make some changes or adapt here and there, then you're still shut off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that kind of goes into just like a humorous story of using a toothpick as the whole quote. If you have a laptop that you take wherever you want and then you come home and you need to plug it in, I would literally lay on my floor, wrenching my neck and my back, trying to feed the cord up the back of my desk. And my boy's like, why don't you just drop it down and then plug it in? And I'm just like, oh my, it's stuff like that. Like, I'm a graphic artist by trade, photographer. And when I started this travel gig again for seminar photography, my friend's like, you edit every single photo in Photoshop. And I'm like, yeah, I know you know what Lightroom is. And I'm like, yeah, but I just haven't taught myself that. She's like, Amanda, you can literally take a batch of 150 photos and just correct the one picture's lighting and apply it to 150 photos. And I'm sitting there taking every photo, all 5,000 into Photoshop because I was closed to, and my ego was involved, that I had to learn a new program. But the program's going to save me thousands of hours. But I got to be right that, oh, this works hard. I'm doing such a good job because it's taking me so many hours. It's like, no. And I've had people tell me before, great, you do that skill so fast. Why don't you go sell it to a couple more people and get more clients with that skill you're really fast at? Instead of, hey, I'm going to milk the clock for this one client when I could be being paid by 5 clients for the same stuff. So just this conversation is really about opening your thoughts up and your eyes around what kind of stuff in your life have you done the hard way, and how much money has it cost you? How much time has it cost you? To be so stubborn about your way is the only way.
I've seen firsthand how it can not ruin a business, but keep a business from growing into potential just by not adapting to new technologies or new just ways of thinking. Absolutely. It stifles growth. And going back to your example, it was stifling your growth of more clients and being able to accomplish more work in the same amount of time. Hey, you can be better. But I think it's more, you have to get rid of that ego and get rid of your old agenda before you can even see that.
Yeah. And the employee or the person that you work with that is so resistant to any new thing that they make everything so extremely hard, and you don't want to help them. But that's what they want. They want to complain about their life. They don't want the help. They want to complain that it's too hard or too much work or whatever. And it's like, there's actually a way to do that in 5 minutes. So it's like fear of loss. Maybe you're expendable if you teach everyone your job and they can do it in 5 minutes and it takes you 2 hours. That would make you maybe less valuable, right? Or you could delegate and use your time on something else that you're really skilled at that people actually do need your efforts on. If you can recognize the ego, or when you're holding the toothpick, or you're extremely resistant, or you're extremely angry all the time, that is resistance. It's time to stop and be like, what is triggering in me? What do I need to be right about? Where am I not open to new ideas? And make some shifts, because I can guarantee people do not want to work with you or hang out with that. If you were doing that to me, we would not be doing this project.
Yeah. And same. And we both brought new ideas to the table, and we both learned new skills in doing this too. We have to be open and willing to do that in order to make this work. We wouldn't be doing this project if neither one of us were open to new ideas and to new skills.
Yeah. And what a loss. So that's a great example. Like, I don't think it's too cocky to say that what a loss for someone who heard episode 2 that changed their life because they got a tool that just shifted their whole life. I'm willing to do this for one person. And if the one person is me that grows out of it, then great. I'm going to keep doing it. It's worth it. I'm worth it.
Agreed. Absolutely agree. If it's just for me, if it's just for you and me, that's great. Hopefully there are other people who will get something out of it, but who are we to let our egos get in the way and stop it from happening because we can't adapt or we can't change? What a shame.
Yeah. It makes me think of my favorite author, which is William Paul Young. He wrote The Shack. He actually wrote that book for his kids, and it was just, printed out and bound it at the office store or whatever. And that thing went crazy, his testimony and all that. So God just opened that up for him. And I personally met him and hung out with him for several days on a cruise. And it's phenomenal to hear people's stories that have pushed through, kept going for their dreams, even though it just seems so stupid and crazy.
Can you imagine if he had gone and asked other people's opinion, if he should have done that or spent time on it?
No. And if you know his story, it has nothing to do with the book. He has a crazy upbringing, and his wife asked him to do it so that the kids would have somewhat of a legacy of how he thinks. And it's just such a beautiful book. It's so good. Okay. So ways that you can shift what we've talked about is going back to when you see yourself non-resistant and there's only one way, stop yourself and remind yourself of the visual I gave you that there's infinite ways to get across the room. You could crawl, you could roll, you could skip, you can dance. There's so many ways. So get out of that mode and start opening up for new ideas. Recognize the areas where you're using a toothpick in your life. You don't have to use a toothpick, guys. You can use a shovel, or you could use a backhoe. Imagine that. You could do way less time.
It can all apply to really little situations or big situations. And I think ultimately we have to remember that we're part of God's bigger plan, and we can't be calling the shots, and we shouldn't be trying to be in control, and releasing that need to stick to our old agenda releases our ego and allows us to be useful to God. Otherwise we're not usable. I think about Play-Doh, and if we're stiff, we're not pliable and usable. But if we release our agendas, we release our egos, and we just say, God, use me as you want, then he can create anything and make anything happen in our lives.
Yeah, isn't it a scripture that says the second you believe you're ready, you're not usable? It's like, oh, so nauseating to think that we actually act like that. I mean, it's really humbling to think, yeah, I've definitely done that. I bet I didn't come across as very teachable.
And we all know people like that, and we've all been people like that, to where we act like no one has anything to teach us. No one has any ideas that we should adopt because we know it all. I mean, yeah, how sickening is that? And would you, if you had the opportunity to work with somebody who just was excited about new things and saying, hey, teach me, I'm here, I'm ready to learn, or someone who said, no, I know everything, I don't need to learn anything, who would you rather work with?
I mean, that's like a little kid all over again, and no one wants to work with a little kid.
No.
Selfish little ego kid.
Right. That's got to be how God not sees us, because God knows us inside and out, but that's how God either uses us or doesn't, or can use us or can't use us.
Yeah. Again, it's all about character. And if we feel like we've arrived in any area of our lives, we'll probably be given an opportunity to either be a hypocrite or learn some more character qualities.
Or learn some really hard lessons. I mean, I think going back to struggles, that's when God puts us through things that humble us and make us realize, oh, yeah, maybe I was a little too big for my britches.
Yeah. I mean, the ultimate thing is, I've read this in my Bible several hundred times in my lifetime. He wants us to desire him in our life. He wants us to ask for help, not because we're needy, but because we're doing this dream and journey with him.
And ultimately for him, right? It's all for his glory, all for his greater plan.
Yeah, like if he's glorified in the end, then that's something worth cheering for. So maybe that's why we don't like to do it, because we actually want the accolades.
Probably it's a self-serving, yeah, mic drop. It's that self-service versus serving God and serving others.
Maybe we don't want to do it because we're not getting the credit. That's something to think on. So let's talk about some of the journaling and reflection questions that we came up with.
Yeah. First, what areas of your life are harder because you're not open to a better solution? Secondly, are you willing to ask a dumb question you're too afraid to ask? And third, can you believe there are infinite ways to reach your goal and your way isn't the only one? This can help make your relationships less combative. So, Amanda, I'd like to talk about number 2 a little more, because we didn't go into that as much.
Okay.
Being willing to ask a dumb question, I think, is so important. I'm guilty, so guilty of this many, many times, where you have a question in your head, but you're in a room full of people and you don't want to ask it because you don't want to look like the idiot. That is fear and ego, no doubt.
It is.
But once we realize that we all have dumb questions and we are all in the same boat, I say this over and over, I'm no better than you, you're no better than me, we're all equal, then it's okay. We release that fear.
Yeah, because I think when we feel like we don't know something, then people won't trust us or use us because we don't know the answer to that. Okay, well, then she definitely doesn't have the answer in all these scenarios. And it's just not true, especially when you take over a new job, or like I've taken over a new copywriting position. I do a lot of writing, and, they kept doing 3 letters, all the, what is it called?
An acronym?
Yeah, all these acronyms. And I'm like, dude. I mean, I have all the acronyms down in photography. You probably don't know all the ISO and all the f-stop and all that stuff, and then I get to sound smart about my photography world. But then you join another world and you're like, I have no clue what that acronym is.
Oh, yeah. We speak in a language of acronyms in the marketing world. And yeah. But like you said, every industry has it. So no one's dumb for not knowing it.
Yeah. In this generation, they get to just ask Siri. They just ask the internet.
And even if we do have the internet right at our fingertips now, but going back to, would you rather work with someone who's teachable and open and willing to say, I don't know the answer, let's learn it, or I'm ready to learn it? I'd much rather work with somebody who's willing to speak up and ask a question than somebody who will just sit silent and pretend like they know the answer out of pride and ego.
Yeah. So take some time and journal about that stuff, and hopefully you'll get an aha from God and further your personal development.
Yeah. And also, one final thought is that I think everything we're saying boils down to remaining humble. It's all about that humility and that humbleness that we should all have. And the Bible says we should all have, that pride will be the fall of man, humbleness.
Yeah, it's really attractive too, by the way. Just take it on. Be a fun person. So see you guys next week.
Yep. See you next week. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for joining us today. We know your time is valuable and we hope you have a phenomenal week.
Until our next episode, find more content and social links at StillWithPurpose.com.